You're listening to episode 142, update episode with Kimberly Ewing. Welcome to the Grass Gets Greener podcast, the show for survivors by survivors. I'm your host, Melissa Wilson, a bullying survivor and anti-bullying advocate. And each week you'll hear from a survivor who has overcome a traumatic experience to go on to not only survive, but thrive, so that you can too, starting now. Hey there, welcome, and thanks so much for tuning into this episode. I'm so grateful to have you here, and Happy New Year to you. This is the first episode of 2019. I hope that your holidays were good. And so we have an update episode to start this year. We're going to be joined by Kimberly Ewing from way back in episode 14, which was almost exactly 4 years ago. And so I'm excited to have her back on to catch up with her and hear about the work that she's been doing. You can listen to Kimberly's first episode at thegrassgetsgreener.com/Kimberly Ewing if you'd like to check that out. Before we get into it, I do just want to mention that this episode is sponsored by Navni. Navni is the top-ranked anonymous writing website in the world. Navni provides free wellness resources and low-cost online therapy services to help people cope with various levels of emotional distress. Write anonymously, feel better at novni.com. And also, one quick announcement I want to make as well. So in case you haven't heard, I've created the Grass Gets Greener Book Club newsletter. I'm very excited for it, and it's a way for me to be able to recommend books that I believe can help you in your healing journey. One of the things I love to do here is provide you with helpful tools and resources for your healing, and books can be a great resource. We've heard how books have helped so many of the guests I've had on the show, and they've certainly been helpful to me as well. So if you're interested and would like to receive personal book recommendations from me, along with updates on my own upcoming book projects, then head over to thegrassgetsgreener.com/book club to get signed up for free today. Now getting on to today's episode. So if you haven't listened to Kimberly's first episode yet, or you don't remember it, that's okay, because as usual, I'll give you a quick summary now. So Kimberly first joined me to share her story of how experiencing childhood bullying has led her down a path of advocacy and becoming a bullying prevention trainer. Kimberly was the target of bullies when she switched schools in the 6th grade because she was viewed as an outsider. Most of the effects that Kimberly experienced were during the time of the bullying, and during that time, she felt confused as to why it was happening to her. She also felt very alone and exhausted from always having to be on alert and defending herself. The things that were key for allowing Kimberly to overcome it at that time were standing up for herself, telling her mother about it, and being removed from the situation. So now that you're caught up on Kimberly's backstory, let me share a little bit about what we'll be talking about in this episode. So Kimberly's going to share about the new training she's doing using something called Emotional CPR, and she's going to tell us all about that. She's also going to give us an update on her bullying prevention work, and also how the school systems are being affected by what's going on in the world today, and what schools can do differently to deal with current issues. We'll also talk about the importance of being a good role model for our youth, and she'll share with us her experience of being bullied in the workplace, and how her bullying experiences inspire the work that she does. So lots of good stuff in here. Hope you're excited for this first episode of 2019 and to get caught up with Kimberly. And so without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into this one, and I'll go bring Kimberly on. Kimberly, welcome back to the podcast, and thank you for joining me here today to continue sharing your journey with us.
Well, thank you for having me back, Melissa. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have you back on. I can't believe it's been almost 4 years, actually. But then again, you were one of my first guests. So I'm definitely looking forward to hearing about what you've been up to and to hear about the work you're continuing to do in the bullying prevention field. So on that note, let's start things out by sharing with us what it is you currently do today, Kimberly.
So as you recall, I am a certified OVAS bullying prevention trainer. And in addition to that, I am a trainer as far as implicit bias, diversity, a leadership trainer. And the new one, since you and I have last talked, that I am doing is emotional CPR.
Well, that sounds interesting. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So emotional CPR, it is a health initiative. And what it helps us to do, we actually train people to assist those who are in emotional stress, having possible trauma at the time. And it's really just been a life-changing training for me, because personally, it has helped me to really focus in more on the person and their needs, and looking at people differently, without asking them, um, what's wrong with you, but what's wrong. And looking at them with the lenses of they're not broken, they are people who are hurting, and empowering them to remind them that they have choices. And emotional CPR is awesome in being able to do that, because then what we do is we make sure that they understand, that they do have choices, and really help them to assist them in being able to recognize that.
I love that. That sounds awesome.
So a lot of people look at emotional CPR, and of course, the first thing you think when you think of CPR is what?
You
What do
know,
you think
just
of? Like helping somebody in
resuscitating someone
distress.
who's unconscious, you know.
Right. And helping them because they're having a cardiac issue. And so what we do is the same thing, but what we're helping them is we're helping bring life back to them emotionally. And we do that when for example, emotional CPR, the C stands for connecting, and being able to connect with that person, being able to connect with their feelings, being able to connect heart to heart, because it's hard to reach somebody when you're not connected to them. It's hard to talk to somebody. It's hard for a person to even want you in their space. So we really train people to identify with one's feelings and see one's humanity. So that connecting piece is really huge, and that's the C in the CPR. The P is empower. So we take a little bit of liberty with that, with the EM, and then of course with the power. And what we do is we see that person as a whole person, and we're not there to fix that person. And a person may ask, well, what am I to do? And to be able to let that person know that, I may not have the answer, but I know that you do. And if you don't, together, we're going to explore that. So we help to be able to uncover that unknown. And then making sure that the person knows that we're not going anywhere. We're going to be with you, and we're going to spend time with you. And that's huge, seeing one's humanity. And then the R is for revitalize. And so our hope is to be able to give them hope, and to remind them about why they're so special, remind them about their past and their dreams. If we know them, even in a little bit of time, if we don't, maybe we can just recognize something special about them. And then to give them a gift of choice and saying, what is it that you can do right now in your situation, no matter how bad it is? What is one thing that you can do that you can be able to move forward with? So that one thing may be for a person that's extremely distressed or extremely depressed. Maybe that one thing is that they can simply just take a shower. Maybe they've been so depressed and they haven't done that, or just get out of the house. Or maybe that one thing could be, what, I'm going to reach out and call a friend, and connect with them. It really doesn't matter what that one thing is.
It
It's
doesn't have
just,
to be anything big. It can be
it
something
does
small.
exactly. It's just something small. So this training has been life changing for me. It's been huge, and one can actually look it up on the internet. and they can look up Emotional CPR, and they can see the trainings that we're doing all across the country, and all across the world, actually. We are connected in Indianapolis, Indiana, with allies of Indiana, and I'm one of the facilitators. So, like I said, when I first took this, it was personal, just to add to the toolbox of what I'm doing as a trainer, and especially with bullying prevention. And after that, I was hooked, and I knew I was passionate about it. And I'm like, I want to be a trainer because I can see that it's absolutely life changing. And it's a 2-day training. And you're talking about some tears that we experience in these trainings. I don't think there's one training I have not participated in where there has not been breakthrough with people
Yeah, I can imagine.
personally. Oh, wow. And we do small, intimate groups. It's not really huge. Maybe the most we'll have could be 30 or 40, and we break them up in groups. Um, and we do what we call real plays. And it may be something that we're sharing about ourselves, and it'll be me and another trainer, and we show them what it looks like to be able to connect, to be able to empower, and to be able to revitalize. And then these professionals then have this tool to be able to help the clientele or clients that they deal with. And it can be anyone from not-for-profit, housing, it could be in hospitals, and it can just be all different types of organizations. When you deal with people, most likely you're going to deal with someone that is going to have an emotional crisis or some sort of trauma. And we don't expect you to fix it, but you can assist a person during that time while you're present with them.
Well, that sounds great. I mean, that sounds like a really great approach to take. And yeah, it's oftentimes, right, it's the things that we try ourselves that have an impact on us that we then, want to share with others, and just kind of, let them know like, hey, there's this great thing and it can help you too. And that's what I love about the show. My guests come on and share about the things that have helped them, and, that can potentially help others as well. And I love just being able, to share different resources and just let people know, what's out there, what are their options, things that can help them.
Definitely.
That's so great.
And what's really cool about this training, everyone takes something away from it. Like for me, I really thought I was doing that, but there's certain things I said, you know what? I may have not been doing it. And if not, now I'm doing it better. Like, for example, listening to a person, truly listening to a person, being truly present with a person is really huge. Being able to let them know that you're there. Some people get caught up in thinking about the next thing that they're going to say. And we get caught up because we're problem solvers. Immediately when they start sharing their problems, we're like, oh, I can do this. Boom, 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 boom. But we're not giving that person a choice. We're not trusting them that they have the answers. And so we take that power away from them. And a lot of people don't even realize it. We just think, with no bad intent or malice, we just think we're being helpful. So for me, it's been life-changing to understand that certain things that I thought were good were not so helpful. And so many other people now have been able to do this. And so we just got through training a big group yesterday. And the takeaway for a lot of them was just to know that they had something in their toolbox now that they knew was going to be helpful and to change lives. And what we reminded them is don't be afraid to use it. You've gone through the training, you've done this for 2 days, and it's better to fail than not to try at all. And so a lot of them felt like, you know what, I'm good, I can do this. And the most important piece of it after you go through any type of training is to do it with fidelity and to do it often. If you're not doing it and exercising it, just like anything else, you're not going to feel confident in using it, and you won't be able to do much with it.
Mm-hmm.
So a person who is in distress, they're not caring if you think, oh my God, I messed up, I said something wrong. Only thing that they're concerned about is that you're there, that you're present, and that you care. So that's the tidbit that I would like to share to many people, even if you never go through the training. Just being there for somebody and connecting with them and seeing them as a whole person, not a broken person, and that they already have the answers, is that we can listen and help to support them to be able to come up what's best for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you said, so the CPR stands for connect, empower, and revitalize. Did I get that correct?
Revitalize. You got it.
Awesome.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah. And it just sounds so empowering, and you're giving, that person the choice and the ability um, to make changes for themselves, which is great.
Yes.
So that's awesome. How long have you been doing that for?
I haven't been doing this long. I'm trying to think how long, in actuality, it may be, maybe 5 or 6 months, I think. It might be a little longer. I cannot recall when my first training was. And it's hard for me to really recall because it feels like I've been doing it forever. You know when a certain training speaks to you and fits you, and this truly fits me. So I'm just excited to be able to help others and train others to be able to use this to help people that are having emotional crisis or some type of trauma. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And now, so sorry, just to be clear, so the trainings that you're doing, are these with people who are learning how to do the training themselves, or who are going through the process, and they've come from some sort of emotional trauma background and are going through this work?
No, these are people who are wanting to be trained.
Okay, gotcha.
So yes, but in the midst of that, we are uncovering emotional trauma, and people are sharing about things that have affected them, that have hurt them deeply.
Right, as they're going through it, things are coming up for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And most people had no clue, and some people do. The things that they begin to uncover. I see it's just like a big onion, and depending on what you go through, somebody starts peeling back the layers. They tap into you, and so that's what takes place during our trainings. So our trainings can be very heavy, and they can be very powerful, because we're dealing with real lives and real people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think I've been doing it now for over half a year for sure. But it's something that I will continue to do, and I'm just honored to be a part of this team.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like, you're training people who are going to be, empowered to help others, in this way, that have gone through emotional traumas, and they're going to be better able to support them, which is great.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, Kimberly. Anything else new going on that you want to share?
Well, I think that's the main one. Of course, we are still training schools in bullying prevention.
How's that going?
That is still going. And I, I, I think what I am seeing, of course, is that the schools are also a reflection of what's happening in the real world. And so whatever is happening, both positive or negative, in our climate currently, I'm seeing a reflection of that in the school systems. And that's something that is a fact. I can't even say it's troubling. It's troubling, period, seeing it, what's happening now in our world with racism and sexism and bigotry, and bullying. And of course, all of those are kind of underneath that same umbrella, just in hate. And it's definitely something that the schools are struggling with.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Over the course of, the past 4 years, almost since you've been on, um, have you seen any changes when it comes to how bullying is being addressed in schools?
Well, I don't know if I'm seeing it any different, except the caveat now I think that we're seeing um, is the racism has an uptick to it.
There's a new piece to it.
Yeah. And not as though that wasn't already there.
Yeah, just more so.
Yeah, it's just to me appears to be amplified with um, graffiti on the walls or in the bathrooms or words young people are saying uh, in reference to Jewish people, in reference to Black people, Hispanic people, and so on. So it's definitely alarming for a lot of parents that just did not think that they would be dealing with this.
hmm
And I share with my schools that it is nothing to sit with. It needs to be addressed as soon as possible because there could be really devastating consequences that could happen for the young person and, of course, for the school.
Yeah. What do you think needs to be done when it comes to addressing this? Like what
Well,
should the schools be doing differently?
I think most importantly is that you have to follow your policies and procedures.
Mm,
And you should not be making accommodations for them uh, because you just think, well, this is different. Oh, and you're looking through different lenses on that. If you're not following the policies and procedures, then you're not developing trust. You're not developing trust with the students. You're not developing trust with the parents. You're not developing trust with the staff. And if you want to look at it in a financial category, it can also hurt you there. You can be sued. Uh, and we're seeing that now.
mm,
So, but when a school will basically say that this is not tolerated, this is not acceptable behavior, and be able to have some teeth in it with consequences, then you know for a fact you're not going to please everybody, but then you know for a fact that people are going to trust you. Youth are going to trust you. And I say trust you, I mean as a school, as in general. That you've got a school that is going to follow through and take a young person's uh, I know that at that point there could be allegations, but their word, and trust me, there is an interview process to be able to find out the truth. You don't want anyone to to pay for something that they didn't do. But young people are watching, and they need to know that there is a school that is going to keep them safe, and that there's a school that is going to follow through with their policies and procedures, even if you're on the other end of
hmm
that. I do know, restorative justice is also a part of that. Some people are been trained in that area. And then in addition, teaching about conflict resolution and so many things that people have been trained on and schools have been trained on. All of those are great, even with the Ovea's bullying prevention and making sure that young people are being able to report what's happening to themselves or even another student. But if we're not following through once it falls in our laps, um, that's not good.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like there's, policies and procedures are there, but they're only as good as their implementation.
Exactly. Trust me, and it's so very true. And I get professionals that will consult with me, and they'll call me and they'll say, "Hey, here's the situation. What are your thoughts?" And they usually, when they call, they really already have the answer. but a lot of times they are concerned. They want to make sure they're doing the right thing. And I get that, but and usually after we talk it out, they're like, yeah, this is what I need to do. Because I know it's not always easy, but sometimes it is very easy. It's just the consequences also that they have to consider of what can happen. So.
Well, hopefully that will get better as we go on.
Well, I hope our climate does get better.
Yeah.
Something like this is going to be I look at it as a season. But sadly, when you have the very top of our country that represents the leadership that is very negative and that will, of course, stir up a lot of this that we're seeing, it's hard to be able to move through it. And that's kind of what I'm seeing right now for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So we need people to speak up, stand up, have courage, and don't compromise on right or wrong just because certain leaderships, especially in our United States, are doing differently. And we do have leadership that still believes in right or wrong. We do have leadership that also believes in protecting our youth and being good examples and role models.
Mm-hmm.
And so the time is also to make sure that we're very clear about what that looks like.
Yeah. But yeah, it's good that, there is some of that leadership there that is able to kind of, to know right from wrong and do the right thing. And hopefully, we'll have more of that kind of prevailing as we go forward and things will improve, and thank you for, kind of updating us on what things are, looking like in the school right now. And that definitely makes sense how, what's going on in the world is impacting what's happening in schools as well. So hopefully things will get better all around, right? We can only hope for that, right?
Yes, because if we approve of bad behavior, then we're giving the thumbs up to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's tough because, they're getting mixed signals. They're saying, well, the world says it's okay. Higher up say it's okay. I can speak this way. I can be this way. I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean it's okay.
Yeah.
So we have to be the ones that really direct our young people into letting them know what an upstander really looks like. We have to be the ones that teach our young people about what it's like to be a good friend. We have to teach our young people what it's like to respect a person, no matter their race, their ethnicity, their gender, their religion, whatever it is that is different, does not give one the green light to be disrespectful or to discount that person. We have to remind them that it is your responsibility alone on how you treat others and that you're a reflection of that. So parents, you're a reflection of it. So it has to start with you at home. This is where your kids learn this. And if they're not learning it from you, they're learning it from their friends. They're learning it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to say, you know what, this is not okay. This is not acceptable. This is not what we're going to do. But if we get compliant with it and if we just turn our heads and put our heads in the sand, and silence is consent.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what anyone else is doing, I would say you need to start with you first. And so the schools have to now say, we don't really care what's happening out there. We do, but we don't. But not in our house. We're not going to mistreat people. We're not going to bully them for difference. We're not going to bully, period. And we're going to make sure that our school is a safe place for all. And if a kid can't be safe in school, and this is where they are the majority of the time during the day, God help us all. Because some kids, sadly, they may not even be safe in their home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a learning place. It should be a learning place, a safe place for young people. And we are in charge of their learning as educators and also of their safety. And it is our goal to make sure that these young people, while they're in our care, are receiving both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, all of that just kind of reminds me of the quote, that we have to be the change that we want to see in the world,
Mm-hmm.
And whether we're talking about the school environment or society in general, like it just comes down to us as individuals, to
Yes.
make better choices and to do the right thing, regardless of what other people are doing or saying.
I totally agree with you.
So Kimberly, it's kind of, shifting into, so we've been talking about what you had going on over the past 4 years since you were last on. What about, what are things looking like for you in the future? Anything that you have coming up that you're excited about that you want to share with us?
Yeah, so one of the things that I decided that I really want to address is adult bullying and adult bullying in the workplace. So I do know that it happens. It happens every single day.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened to me, and um, and I tell you, when it did happen to me, it was still hard for me to even receive that it was happening. Um, I remember sharing some of the behavior that I was experiencing, and I won't name where I was working, but I remember sharing some of the behavior, and I had a friend to say to me, "You're being bullied," and I was like, and when you're in it, it's hard to see it, but I knew it wasn't good, and I knew it was toxic, and I knew as soon as they said it, I'm like, "Oh my God, you're right."
Mm.
And it was really tough for me wanting to go to work every day and to deal with this. And I also saw the same individual, not just bullying myself, but bullying other people at this particular place that I worked. And the sad part about it is that it was not being addressed. There, it appeared that the person in charge, I don't know why I felt as though they were being bullied too, but they appeared not to want to address it. And this person was given a license to just be a hellraiser and make everyone extremely on their toes of, who's next, or, well, no one's saying anything because I don't want to be next. And it was just very interesting. And so, again, I didn't stay in that long. I had choices when starting to recognize what was happening and being able to advocate for myself to a certain degree, not getting support, people who were, of course, very fearful of this particular person, and because they were not going to be supported. So I have decided that that's something that's very dear to my heart too, because a lot of people don't have choices. Like, for example, I had a choice when I was bullied as a young person where I could uh, leave that school and go back to my old school. And you know about that story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had a choice not to stay at this particular place of employment and do something different. But some people don't.
Yeah, they
They don't
don't.
have choices.
Mm-hmm. They
Or
really they need that job, and they have to decide between, what are they going to do? Are they going to, leave their job and, put themselves in a tough financial situation potentially, or are they gonna, stick with it and have to put up with this bullying?
Exactly. And I tell you what, it's not cool, but what's happening out here in the workforce. It's and because of the temperature of what's happening right now, it's getting worse, and I'm hearing about it more. Um, and it breaks my heart because you could just see people being depleted and they're drained, and you could see the hurt and the pain and feeling um, lost and not knowing what to do and not knowing who to trust. And it's not like when you were in school. Kids don't even want to tell when you're in school. So can you imagine an adult not wanting to share what's happening with them because they feel like, now I'm really going to be a target if I share.
Mm-hmm.
And so people are in a really tough place. So that's something that's dear to my heart, to number one, bring attention to it, and then talk about what can you do as a supporter. And that's the reason why ECPR is so important to me too. Many people, again, feel powerless, like young people feel powerless to support a person, another student, because they're afraid that now they're going to be a target. But how can we empower supporters to help the adult when they're being bullied on the job? And that, to me, is something that I think um, can just change somebody's life immensely, especially for those that feel as though they don't have a choice and they have to stay where they are.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. I mean, I think that is so important and so needed as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. So Kimberly, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm super excited overall, just because we're about to go into 2019, and I always
And
see.
actually, when this goes live, it will be 2019. So we are in
Right.
2019.
Okay. Well, I'm super excited with a new year,
Hmm.
because I believe with a new year comes new ideas and changes. And I'm also excited personally because it gives me hope in humanity when I see people who go through the changings that the trainings that I'm honored to conduct, um, just to see people that really care about young people, really care about adults and people just in general. So, um, and of course, just always wanting to have a healthy mind and a healthy body. One of my personal goals for your listeners is to eat better, to get more exercise, and to sleep better.
All
So,
very important. Well, especially,
exactly.
for us to be able to do the work that we want to do in this world.
Exactly. So, well, those are my three, and I know we choose that every time, but I have just been very focused in on making sure that is top priority. I try to improve it every year. I don't just use a new year to do that. I try to improve it every year, and
Hmm.
so I think that it helps me for sure.
That's great. Well, I hope that you have a great 2019. It sounds like you have a lot of exciting things going on.
Yes, I am excited about that, and I hope you do the same, because I really appreciate your work and your contributions in the area of bullying, and just being able to give a voice to people who have these stories to share, and how your work in general is changing lives. So thank you so much, Melissa, for what you have been doing and what you will continue to do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, So I like to ask, my guests when they come back on. So I know, like, when you were bullied in school, a lot of the ways in which you were affected at that time, were kind of just at that time of the bullying and just being affected every day that you were in that situation. But looking back on it, do you find that there anything that comes up for you today? Any ways that you find you're still affected by what you went through then, or even from the adult bullying that you experienced?
Um, I think I'll speak for myself because I know that's a question you're asking directly to me. Um, I carry the adult bullying in a way that it keeps me still engaged in this work. Um, and the trauma that I experienced, I don't carry that uh, to this day, but I carry the memories that I'm reminded that I was that kid when I go in and speak uh, to young people about bullying prevention or train teachers and professionals. So I'm reminded of that. And then as far as what I experienced in my adult, that's still very fresh because that was more recent.
Mm-hmm.
And it it is a reminder to me to not settle, and is a reminder to me um, to always stick up for be first an advocate for myself, and not to settle, because sometimes the very person we're looking to help us and save us is ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if you trust in yourself to do that,
Yeah.
and then that particular piece too has been very helpful for me to again, just to continue the work I do in bullying prevention, in implicit bias, diversity, now with emotional CPR, with student leadership. It just continues to make me realize that you are in your lane and you're doing the work uh, that really is helpful in changing lives, which is important to me. And I found that it's been very important to the people that I've come connected with. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I can hear how your experiences just, they make you passionate about the work that you're doing today, which is great.
yes, I think our experiences shape and mold us, and we can allow them to take us to the next level and not to stay stuck. And that's what I allow myself to do. Not to say I don't occasionally have these flashbacks, because I do, I'm human. But I do my very best to allow them to take me to the next level and to be very helpful and useful to making a difference and changing lives.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So, Kimberly, I want to ask you the final question that I have for you today. And this is the same final question that I asked you the first time. And I
Yes.
ask it again because, some time has passed and you've had more experiences under your belt. So maybe your answer has changed, and maybe not, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, given what you know now, if you could go back to when you were going through your tough times and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
I remember you asking me this question, and I don't think my answer's changed. Um, Tell somebody. I would have told my mother sooner. Some of our parents, especially for a young person, um, they're not viewed as best friends, but they are your best friends. Some of them can be your best friend. Some of them love you absolutely dearly, and I'm just talking about myself personally. But my mother loved me unconditionally. I do not have the answer why I did not tell her. I do have an idea why I didn't. I didn't want to worry her. I thought I could handle this. Being a 12-year-old, I got this. Don't worry about it. Go to work. Appreciate you. We got this. but I should have told her a whole lot sooner because she could have addressed it and she would have been able not to make that a long period of time of me being bullied and mistreated by my peers at that time. And I don't think I would have told a teacher. When I go back in time, that's the right thing to do because But I was a kid. As an adult, obviously, I'm going to go to a teacher, but I didn't have any particular relationships at that time. And most importantly, I think young people need to know they have choices. So don't feel as though that you can sit with it if you want to. You can think it's going to be fixed, but you do have a choice. And I would always say, tell somebody that you trust. Most young people will tell a sibling, and the siblings need to speak up and then tell their parent that something has happened to their little brother or their little sister. But tell somebody that you trust, whoever that is, a mother, a father, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a nephew, somebody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And yes, that is what you had said last time as well. And I think, yeah, I mean, it's so important to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I mean, for me, I didn't say anything either. I kept it to myself for a while, the time I was going through it, and then for another 5 years after. And so I think that's one thing I would certainly tell myself as well.
Yes. And even as adults,
Yeah.
the adult bullying that I experienced, I told somebody about what I was experiencing at work. Now, they're the ones that actually said, "Hey, Kim, I think you're being bullied. And matter of fact, I don't think you're being bullied." And I'm like, "Oh my God, no, this is not happening to me." And, but thank God I told somebody because then, there's so much shame that comes with being bullied, or there's so much shame that comes with when you're dealing with racism. I don't know why
Yeah.
that is the case.
And I think that's part of why we don't say anything.
Right. We just feel like, once you share it, then you're going to become a target. Like, oh, you're a tattletale, you're a snitch, or whatever. You don't become popular. You're now. You thought you were being attacked. You're really going to be attacked. And this
Right.
is what they put in your heads,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that it keeps you isolated from getting help. But when I was able to share that, even when I was going through this as an adult, I was at least able to think about strategies that were going to be helpful for me to be able to get through the time that I had at this particular organization. And even be able to think about what I might need to do legally if necessary. So I wasn't alone. Don't allow the people who are victimizing you to isolate you and to make you feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what I would share to people. Always tell. And if you are afraid about who you tell because you're not really sure about what this is going to look like, tell somebody that you really strongly believe, and you should, no matter what, that you have confidence in is going to be able to make this confidential. And they may say, yeah, you can tell them, hey, I think I don't know what I want to do, but I just want you to talk to. I don't want you to do anything. I just need this to stay between you and myself.
Yeah. It's so important, regardless of what we're going through, to be able to just tell someone, let them know so that we can get that help, and I know it's always a scary thing. But I think, in every instance when I've opened up to someone about something I've been struggling with, I think it's always been positive, and it's
Mm-hmm.
always helped me to move past it. So it's important. So I think, just find that person who feels safe to you and just, you know, open up to them, share what you're going through, and allow yourself to receive that help and support that you deserve.
Yes, yes, because that's where the healing is. And that's where you'll be able to explore together with the right person about what do you need to do? What would you like to do? Um, and what are your next steps?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Kimberly, thanks for coming on today. And what can we do to, help support you and what you have going on?
Well, if anyone is interested in bullying prevention, and I know you're going to share my links, but please feel free to look me up. And again, it's kdemotivates.com. And in addition to that, if you just want to reach out, if you have any questions, just please let me know. I'll be more than glad to assist you in that area. It's Kimberly at kdemotivates.com is my email. And for those of you who might be interested in emotional CPR, please look that up too in your area. Of course, you can look that up on the internet, and you might be able to find some trainings in your neighborhood and where you live. And if you have any questions in that, just please let me know too.
That sounds good. So I'll be sure to have the website and your email address linked up for people to check out. Any other ways that people can connect with you or find out about what you have going on?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Twitter, I haven't been extremely active on, but you can follow me, of course, on Facebook, and you'll see some postings I do on Katie Motivates. And the Instagram, I keep pretty light and fun. The other day, I just posted a sweet potato pie. So,
Nice.
But I did talk about the training that we just did with emotional CPR. So, I'd be more than glad to connect with people, and would always love to know what other people are doing. And if you would love to share, please do that.
All right. Sounds good. And I'll be sure to have all that linked up as well. So, Kimberly, I just want to thank you again for coming back on today and catching us up on what you've had going on over the past 4 years, and for sharing with us about the emotional CPR that you've been doing recently. I think that sounds really amazing. And yeah, just thank you for the work that you're continuing to do when it comes to bullying, and just being there to support others who are struggling, and just sharing a message of hope and positivity for others out there. So thank you.
Thank you. And again, Melissa, thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful, fabulous year.
All right. Thank you. You too. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
All righty. You too.
Thanks for listening to the show today. This has been the Grass Gets Greener podcast, episode 142. Go to thegrassgetsgreener.com/Kimberly Ewing and the number 2 to find the links mentioned during this episode, or to leave a comment. So I hope you enjoyed this update episode to kick off the new year and are inspired to make it a great 2019. And if this episode resonated with you, then help support Kimberly and check out the work she's doing and connect with her on social media. And come back in 2 weeks for the next episode. And also, don't forget to head over to the website to grab your free copy of the Top 10 Strategies Guide for Survivors. In it, you'll find the top 10 most common strategies my podcast guests have used for overcoming the effects of past trauma. It's a great place to get started if you're looking for some strategies that can help you in your healing, as they have helped my guests. And you can find that at thegrassgetsgreener.com/guide, or also on the show notes page. So be sure to grab that if you haven't yet. And lastly, don't forget to head over to iTunes or Stitcher to leave the show a rating and review so that we can reach as many survivors as possible. And as always, have hope.